So the topic of today is what every woman needs to know about men's sexuality. About men's sexuality. What every woman needs to know about men's sexuality. Okay, so what do we say about men's sexuality? Huh? Let me read for you what I read, what somebody wrote today. A lady, of course. Let's read. Okay, first of all, before I read what a lady wrote, let me read what the man wrote. One man wrote and he said, "Pastor, honestly, thank you so much for this. Because honestly, not a lot speak on issues concerning manhood. They raise the topic of marriage. Man are thinking in their mind that they only talk about marriage in general terms, but they don't talk about manhood and the nature of man. That not too many people talk about how the makeup of man, the nature and the demand of man. So men are forced to play along. Men are forced to play the role of, these superheroes that, is created around them and for them. And men are playing along the role that people expect of them. And they are living double lives, double standards, not hiding their sexuality and who they are. So it was a great joy that they could hear that somebody is actually helping us put in words what we go through on a daily basis, that we cannot even talk about to our wives, that we cannot even talk about to our family members and things like that. So my question, though, to the woman is that, what are your expectations about why are women so disappointed? Because women are so disappointed at this topic. Let me read some of the comments that the women were giving, what some women were saying about this my topic, and what they were saying about the men. See, one of them says, "Men are dogs." This is on my platform. This is what somebody is saying. Men are dogs. They love so many women at the same time. So their love is shallow. They are simply dogs. So this is just because she got to know about the nature of the woman, of the man, and about how the man's sexuality is built up. So women are struggling to reconcile with this. So women are saying men are dogs. And this idea of men are dogs is not just coming from African women. Maybe this is an African woman saying that. But do you know that women in America say the same thing? Do you know that? Women in America say the same thing, that men are dogs. Do you know that women in Spain say the same thing, that women are dogs, men are dogs? Do you know that women in Europe, European women, say the same thing, that men are dogs? English women say the same thing, that men are dogs. And everybody, in all culture, in all nations of the world, people are saying men are dogs just because of their sexuality. Now, so my thinking is this. Why is it that women don't question themselves and say, are they just dogs? Is it just possible that all of them are just dogs and bad? Or there is something we don't know? Or there is something about their makeup? Or there is something that we need to understand? And so, when you begin to question yourself, so I'm saying, okay, if you are saying men are dogs, why do you marry them? Why do you still go and put your life in the hands of the man? Or you are thinking, my own will be an exception. So that's why I think that we still need to examine more the role of men's sexuality. And we need to help the woman know something about men's sexuality. So that men are dogs is absolutely wrong. I don't think men are dogs. I think we need to put this in perspective and try to understand what is working for for men, and what is working against men, and how to put that in perspective. So, is it that men are dogs? I'm a man, and I beg to disagree. Now, someone else is saying here, and this kind of proof the argument that men are dogs. And let's hear what this person says. This person is saying, she's a woman, of course. I knew this, that men are like this to some extent, so I was prepared for it when I married. But having him, probably the husband, having him sleep with my cousin was a big blow. So I knew men are dogs, or I knew men have problems. I knew men are promiscuous. I knew men do awkward things, but I was not prepared for the fact that he would sleep with my cousin. So now, one thing that women are struggling with by saying men are dogs is that we should first of all come to a conclusion that sexuality by itself should not define man. Man cannot be defined only by sexuality if we really want to be objective. Okay, for example, another case, I was talking to another person today and was saying, this man is just a useless man. I said, what makes him useless? This man, for example, was one of the leading individuals in his country. He was one of the top 3 leaders of that country. Actually, the 3rd most powerful country of his country. Yet, some people are saying that this guy is just useless. So what makes him useless? Because, and the wife is saying, let him just be paying the school fees and be of the children and taking them to school and university, sponsoring them and pay for our expenses. That is the only thing he's capable of doing. So it's useless, but it's not useless enough because he's having children all over, but he's paying for the school fees of all the children, sponsoring them, just like we have a man in our country they call Abiola. Can you readily call Abiola a useless man? Because he had all the children everywhere, but sponsoring them, responsible for them, taking care of his wives or his women and all that. But yeah, women think in their mind that he's just a useless woman. One of the, this was not Abiola I'm talking about, but let's say his wife said he's just a useless man. Why? Because he's having all these children everywhere, but at least he's taking care of me, taking care of my family, and my children. That's the only thing he can do. So will that be fair to say he's useless just because of his sexuality? Or there are some other things, other factors that define a man? I just want to know, with a woman, what do you women think? What defines a man? Is it just the sexuality that defines him? Or other things are there that need to be considered if we want to define a man? I can't see the answers yet. Well, so if the only thing that you want to use to describe or define a man is his sexuality, then you could say men are dogs. But if you want to go beyond sexuality, then it's difficult to call men dogs. Okay, since I'm not getting any answer, since I'm not getting any answer from here yet, let me just take advantage of the people I have here with me. Let them give me their own responses. I want to hear what they think. Is it enough for sexuality to define? Let's start with the lady. For sexuality to define a man, if he's, you know, if he's a man or not, or if he's useless or not, or if he's a foolish man or not, or if he's dog or not, just by his sexuality, or do we go beyond sexuality to define a man? What do women think? I want to get not your own opinion, but generally women. Of course, considering your opinion too.
Yeah, it's a term, men are dogs. I've heard that many times.
Men are dogs in America?
Oh, yes. And I just assume that the reason why they say that is because we know that men do sleep around, and that you know, it's a great pain for women, you know, to experience. And I feel like the feeling of disappointment and hurt is why those terms are used. I'm saying that the presentation that we are getting now about the nature of man, we're getting more information than, at least for me, that I have ever heard. My hope and my delight is the fact that men are responding and saying, yes, it is our nature. This is how we are. And so the next thing that I'm looking at is for us women on this platform to ask questions that, if that be the nature, what should be our response? I would say that number one response would be, if we have daughters, if we have sisters, and, you know, preparing to get married, this should be something that should be shared to them, so they don't have an illusion of who a man is. From what you want a man to be, what I want a man to be, to what nature a man carries. A woman also carries a nature of her own. I'm sure if we asked the men, when you were marrying, what did you think the nature of a woman was, and what did you find out when you got married? It's like two different things. And knowing both natures, the nature of man, now we get a chance, like I say, to sort this thing out. But I would say to women that on this platform, that if there be some deep questions or even issues of discussions, this is the time to do it. Put it out there, let's talk. And then for the men, as many of you who, you know, are could, you know, have overcome or overcoming this nature that we are describing, if there's ways that you've been able to have integrity and be the man of your wife's dreams, give those tips out on this platform. Because what's going to happen is that we really don't want to call ourselves names. We don't want to call women, you're all prostitutes, and we don't want to call men, you're all dogs. What we want here is to find out, how do these two natures that God has created in His image, let's not forget that, how does this work out? How can we deal with these issues that can be extremely painful, break up relationships? And on both sides are sad. They feel like they've been cheated out of the marriage in one way or another. So I would just say that use this platform to bring out your issues, to ask your questions, and the men that have been able to ride through this, overcoming, should also give tips out to and if women have been also successful in understanding men's nature, they should come out on this platform and bring out their ideas.
What do you think, sir? Are men dogs? Are all men dogs?
Actually, that's I don't know where the terminology came from.
But have you heard that before?
Yes,
women
have.
say that.
I have. Even growing up in Nigeria, it's been like that. And I think the reason boiled down from the fact that people just don't value each other. Like men for so long have seen women as just a dumping ground. Because the first thing a man wants to do now is to get powerful, get money. Because, you know, if you are rich and you can provide, you can get any woman that you want. And the thought is still prevalent, even in our age, not just our father's age. And actually saying that men are dogs, I don't think it's really fair on us, some of us men, that try very hard to understand our women and understand women generally and be able to respect them. Me, for example, not growing up with a father figure or no role model, I wrestle with that. When I was growing up, thinking that really, should we just act as dogs? Because they've seen us that way. But I really want to dissuade people that think that all men are like that. There's still a very small fraction of men that still believe and have integrity, believing that their body is the temple of the living God.
Who work on themselves.
And work on themselves day and night. They beat their body to subjection. They literally want to take their eyes out if it's a wandering eye. So really defining all men as dogs, I don't think is fair. The gentleman that you were talking about the fact that, let him just pay the bills, actually drives home the point that men are making why they act like dogs. Because if you keep a dog around just because he can pay a bill, are you strengthening that dog to continue to act like a dog? Or you want to really examine yourself and figure out, do I really need this man around and keep empowering him?
Okay, the fact that he's able to pay his bills and the bills for the children, taking care of all the children and taking care of the wife, is that not a show of character enough? Or for the woman, that doesn't count?
It counts. I mean,
and you are saying it counts for the
it
wife.
really counts. But that does not still excuse the fact that the woman just said, okay, I'm going to tolerate him. I think women need to speak up and really challenge your men that, listen, this kind of behavior, why did you marry me? This kind of behavior is not, let me help you. If you need sex, tell me. Well, let me tell you a secret in our family. I'm very busy. And sometimes I will just forget to even get down with my wife. And she will tell me, honey, it's time to make an appointment. When I hear that, I stop everything I'm doing and I'm all over lovey-dovey and caressing. And if sometimes you have to block a day and I'll just not go to work, that's how you can help your man. Because she's realizing that this guy has been going for weeks. How's he surviving? But I might be busy, I might not have a wandering eye, but she's concerned about me. The fact that, okay, you have not really had a release. Is it time for us to stop what we're doing? That's how you help your man.
But is it? What do you say, Pastor Lola? The fact that a man is, I think that is responsibility. That is taking care of his children, his wives, providing for everybody. So that doesn't count for a woman. For a woman, but the woman is still saying he's a useless man.
It should count, but I think maybe if you're looking at just the nature of man when it comes to sexuality, and then mix it up with the total nature of a man, which part of it is responsibility for his family, all his children, his wife, and so on. I think sometimes it's all boiled up into one. Even though it's all boiled up together, the sexuality. The sexuality nature of a man is all just boiled up. It's like
that the thing that women see?
Well, for me being a woman, I think that's the part, because it's such a personal part. It's like, how do you recover from your husband going out there sleeping with women, and then he's taking his responsibility, is helping the children out and the wife, but for a woman,
That doesn't count.
It just, it counts, but it's like you have to let it count. You have to convince yourself that. You have to convince yourself as a woman that, well, at least he is. But it's not something that a woman wants to. A woman wants to say, well, yeah, sure, he does sleep around, but he's taking care of the kids and me. Or most women will pound on that woman if she says that. But yeah, we do have women like that they've just decided, you know what, as long as he takes care of the kids, he takes care of me, he can go ahead and do what he wants to do. So I think that the nature of man is not just the sexual character that we are talking about now. To be honest, I like the balance that you're bringing into it, is that you also have to look at.
Are we not supposed to judge every human being by their character, by the content of their character?
And what's that?
Rather than by focusing on just one thing. That content of character means how he relates to people, how he relates to God, how he behaves, how his service to the society, to the community, his kindness, his heart, his responsibility, his judgment, and many other things. So, for example, if a man like Schwarzenegger, who came from nobody, from being a refugee or an immigrant in America, goes ahead and becomes a champion, becomes a movie star, make a great career for himself, and then he becomes the governor and all that. But he had that failure with his wife or with his something. That is part of it. You cannot avoid it. But the wife will come and say he's just a dog, so it's not worth it.
I think what you mentioned.
The issue of men's unfaithfulness to a woman is so personal. It's so deep. Even if he pays for everything, that hole to be healed is going to take a lot. It's going to take a lot. We can look at it and say, well, at least it's better is taking responsibility of the home, the wife and the children. But we're talking about the wife. We're talking about the woman. She's wounded. She's a wounded soul that had to her whole self again. For some women, it's pain forever. For some women, it's pain to their grave. They will try to manage the matter, but it's like you talked about, diseases begin to arise within the body as she's trying to take it. So that's the kind of pain that it is. It's not like they will not appreciate the responsibility that the man is taking, but there's a wound, very deep wound that's going on, that she just has to decide to just sort of ignore it and just keep on moving on with life, which is very dangerous and very, very harmful for them.
And I think women could help the men to know this wound, or to know about this wound, and to talk about these wounds.
Yeah.
The men don't know about these wounds.
I can believe that.
They don't even know what it seems like.
Yeah. But for
they could see her crying and just try to imagine it, but they don't experience it.
No.
You could imagine that?
I can imagine that they wouldn't understand unless women talked about it. And like you were saying, you've been encouraging men to listen to their women. And if they listened more to the women will begin to reveal these things. Remember, she's not just going to say, she's going to want to believe that you are listening and that she's trusting you to be able to comfort her at her hurts. But that wound, men should know about it. It lasts forever. For any man that has a mother that has gone through their father having many wives or sleeping with many women, I think maybe men can relate, remembering the hurt that their mother went through. And a lot of these men end up really just loving their moms and taking care of their moms because they understand the sacrifice that their mother made to stay in the relationship just so that they could grow up and have a family. I think maybe that's the beginning for men.
So what makes the ladies keep on going to marry them if they've seen that pain? Or they
Isn't that
because
amazing?
they didn't experience that pain?
we all believe that we are going to find our Prince Charming, and the approach is like a Prince Charming. A man is coming to say, I love you, I'd like you to be my only woman. And in our hearts, the way that we are made, our Prince Charming has come, and we're going to work things out. That's the belief. We're going to work things out. And then there are some other women who are aware that they, before they get married, that their, boyfriend do sleep around, but they believe that if they get married to him, that will stop. So
but what about, so the ladies don't really know the creative nature of, not the creative nature, the seeding nature of the man. That men carry seeds and they plant these seeds. So nobody can guarantee for anybody. Even that man cannot guarantee what will happen in his own life.
I believe there are some women that know, but probably they'll be very, small in number. As far as the nature of man, I'm not too sure that people are learning it the way that we're learning it on this platform here. And like I say, with the men being on this platform and responding, I think it's the greatest help to realize that, yes, this is an issue. Women, you need to know about it, and we need to discuss this so that you're not unaware.
So is the sexuality enough a reason to say it's a dog, or its character counts?
I can't say that it's enough, but I'm just saying that it really blows everything away for the woman. It really just, it's so personal. It's so personal because you're expecting that your prince, he picked you because he finally decided that this is the person that I want. I'm going to be with you forever. I'm going to be faithful. And then it doesn't happen. And like we talked about, the feeling of I'm not good enough, the feeling of the other person that he's going to meet is better than you. Those kind of feelings all begin to arise, So it's not easy to deal with.
Doctor.
Well, for that statement, we need to really digest it. If you look at...
A man is a dog?
Yes. How dogs mate. I actually observed one in my neighborhood. Two dogs were going in opposite direction. One turned around and started sniffing around. I started mating with the other dog. And I was like, is that how they see us? That we just go around the neighborhood and the first lady that opened her legs, we just jump in. It's actually more than that. Sexual sin is very complicated. Men are very deliberate before they get into the act. You have to find a hotel, you have to find the lady attractive. That's what makes it, women need to understand the fact that it's a deliberate act. Because we don't just sniff around a dog and then get into one corner and just do it. You got to find a room, you got to make plans, maybe take her to dinner and all those things. In the past, I used to think that women are to blame before I got married. That women probably are not satisfying the man at home. But the more I know, especially in medical school, the more I realize the fact that our sexual organ is so sensitive and so that just looking at a pretty lady, we can just get aroused. And I was like, why is that? Why is it so connected to our senses? A female may smell nice and we just say, okay, it's time to go to bed. But it's getting to the point where women also need to realize that men are not just dogs that are just walking down the street, see a lady and just said, okay, I'm going to take this person to a hotel and sleep with them. It's not that. There might be situations where people get attracted and they start walking in close proximity and then they develop things and the lady is ready to go with the man. But to just generalize every man as a dog, I don't think.
But the fact that he's paying the bills and he's taking care, does that count? Or Does his character count to describe the man, or it doesn't count? Just the sexuality.
In this case of men are dogs, when women say that, they are not considering any other thing that you did. They are just talking about that act of sexual acts.
But would that be fair though, if the man is as accomplished as like Abiola or
Yes,
like other
yes,
people?
it will be fair. One of the characters that make a man is not how many holes you stick your thing into. What makes your character? You mentioned it. You said the fear of God. If we don't have that fear of God, everything else just falls apart. What constrains us in everything we do, whether we want to be motivated to go and be a provider for our family, a protector, it still boils down to that
We are
one.
talking about general men. There are even some religions that allow it. So that's not talking about fear of God now. Because even in their religion, fear of God means to even have more. And then there are some people who don't believe in God. We're just talking about the nature of men generally.
Well, I've only known two religions, Christianity and Islam. Islam, I was born into Islam. And even then, the imams, they will have to go marry the lady if they feel sexual urge towards them. Even though religion allows them to marry as many as they can take care of.
Just a minute, please. Davida is saying paying the bills has nothing to do with sleeping around. Sleeping around is simply wrong. Yes, we are not saying that sleeping around is right. We are just saying that does sleeping around, does justify calling a man dog. So what we are talking about is that the man is a dog. It's not paying bills. We are saying that is it a dog? He's paying the bills, yet it's a dog. He's doing all other things. He's getting success in his business, yet it's a dog. So what we are saying is that he's sleeping around alone, the reason that qualifies him to a dog. Not sleeping around, not paying the bills makes him a dog or not. Yes.
Yeah, well, let me help Davida by saying that it is absolutely right to call a man a dog. I don't care how many millions they have. If they cannot control themselves sexually. You see, my study, personal study in life, I found that that's number one reason why great men that God has already anointed to be great men never become great men. Because they can't control the sexual urge. And you find yourself every day putting your body under subjection just to attain to the heights. There was something that Pastor said that resonated with me. I realized that when I'm very busy, I have a lot of beautiful ladies in my practice. I love them like a sister, but I've made my decision that I'm going to treat them like a lady. Even if they are single, if they are available, I don't really care. In fact, I will introduce them to my wife to make sure that they know that this guy is married. One has asked me before, are you happily married? And I said, why are you asking? He said, because I thought maybe you want a sidekick. I said, I don't want a sidekick. I have a wife. You need to meet her. Wonderful woman. And when she did, she said, you're right. Your wife really cares for you and love you. And that is where men needs to get to. If as a man, I am dating a woman, and she has wandering eyes too, like I found her not being, saying that she was going to go somewhere, but she's not there. I'm going to start thinking that, okay, well, maybe I should go get a sidekick. So what we are saying is that character really boils down to a man making a decision that this is a commitment, it's not an agreement, it's not a business deal. I am committing to the woman that I marry, and period, that's it. Talking about people that really says, okay, I don't have religion, I can sleep with as many women as I... Just remember that spiral thing that Pastor showed us. You are messing with their emotions. You can compartmentalize and just say, okay, I dump here, I'm going to go to the... But look at the wreckage you are leaving behind. And that's why they call you qualified to be called a dog. I totally support men that are... I don't care how many millions they pay in bills. If they cannot control their sexual urge and just have a sexual partner, I think they are qualified to be a dog. That's just my opinion.
Okay. As eloquent as doctors' arguments are, I'm sorry to say they are wrong. Because if you say that the great men that become great, the thing that stops them is promiscuity for men, you cannot back that up either by somebody is even say, really nigger? Somebody is abusing us already here. I'm going to block the guy. It's not confirmed. It's not, even if you go by the scriptures, the fact that men have many wives or many women didn't stop them from becoming great. Talk about David, talk about Solomon, talk about other men, people that were great. So that conflicts that one right there. Secondly, look into our world today. Most people who are faithful to their wives are just Christians. And they are not the greatest of all men. Some of the people who are greatest and famous and all that, they are people who live their free life the way they want it. And even look at Islam, where some of the richest men now are coming from. They have 2, 3, 4 wives, but that doesn't stop them. So even though there is a truth in that, in what we're talking about, but I think we should rather base it on the fact that the word of God is against it. It's a sin, and sin will land you in hell. Sin will take you to hell. And the sin of adultery or fornication, will take the man to hell if he lives in that sin. If he doesn't repent and he doesn't change his lifestyle. So the fear of God is important, but we still want to find out, why is it that men, like you said in the morning, who seem to have the fear of God too, who are pastors or who are leaders, or they still struggle with their libido, they still struggle with their sexuality, and they still, have these issues. So that is what we want to really confront. If we just say that they are just dogs, there is something that I want the ladies to understand, that there is a reason why it seems to be widespread. There is a reason why it's like every one of two other men is having this problem. And one of the 2 other men is just because it comes out. The others are not just out. Okay, then how do you address the fact that men might not be sleeping around, but he might be relieving himself somehow? A man that is not sleeping around, for example, in my own church here, a woman came to me and said, I don't know if my husband is sleeping around or not, but I surely know that he's masturbating, even though I'm in the house. So does that break the heart of the woman also, or not, equally? Or is that also equally dangerous, as an effect? I want to ask you, Pastor Lola, does that have an equally damaging effect on the woman or not? Because this woman, she was crying also very distraught and very disappointed that even though I don't know if he's sleeping around or not, maybe he's not sleeping around, but he's surely masturbating. How bad is that for the woman? Is that does that qualify him also as a dog? Is that painful for the woman? How is that painful for the woman? Because we need to know about this pain of women.
Ooh, wow. That's one that I haven't
heard about. You're not heard about that.
On that, really. Maybe I should say the feedback that I've gotten is I've never gotten any feedback on an issue of a man masturbating. I've not gotten any feedback. What I get is what we're talking about, sleeping around. But from what we did in the morning and understanding the nature of man, one of the things that you did talk about was the man has a need to empty his tank. So if he is not sleeping around, how do we think he will be emptying his tank? There are different ways to do it. Some people go donate their sperm and so on and so forth. But
no, that doesn't fulfill it's not
yeah,
the same.
It doesn't. It's not the same thing. So I really haven't gotten the feedback. I really don't recall anybody being upset, mad because they found out that their husband was masturbating. So I can't really give a report on how women feel about that.
Okay.
Yeah.
You don't have an idea.
I know that even in the medical field, there are some OBGY people that are saying that it's healthy for men to masturbate. Because, and my scripture tells me also that, there are certain sins that you really want to flee away. And these sexual sins that we're talking about is really great. I was talking to one of my friends who studied OBGY, and he was trying to convince me why masturbation in a man, even married men, is very healthy. Said in a situation where your wife is not ready for sex or anything like that, that is perfectly okay for you to empty your time. There's a reason why he said that. He said the incidence of prostate enlargement in men are great if they are not having sex regularly. I said, I didn't know that.
Is he a doctor?
He said, he's a medical doctor. And I was like, where did this study? Well, how come we don't hear about it? He said, yeah, they are still doing the study to see whether there's something with prostate cancer and men that are not really ejaculating frequently. And he's saying that the initial studies is showing them that a lot of men are going to end up with prostate cancer or prostate enlargement because they are not getting regular ejaculation. That's why they are now preaching, men, if you can't find a woman, go and masturbate. Because it's better for you to masturbate rather than die from prostate cancer. I still don't know. The jury is out on that. But my opinion basically is still that somebody was asking one of my classmates, hi, Buki. She's the lady that actually led me to the Lord. I really admire her a lot.
She's on this something.
She's just on the platform asking, how do you define greatness? Buki, there's no man that is great in my book if you continually sin. I don't care how much you have. It's not about money. Money, we can't go to heaven with it. Greatness in my mind is how much impact you can have on people and how less you can actually do the things you know. Do it with all your might.
So people like Abraham Lincoln were not great. People like
to me, all those
people will say you are not going to be remembered, but they are already remembered.
But it is true.
Although they don't sleep, thousands of people, millions of people didn't sleep about in their time, but nobody knows them. But they even had slave women and all that. And
it is true, but in my book,
sexuality shouldn't define greatness, though.
Well, sin to me, if somebody continually performs sin, to me, I don't care how much you have or how much you can take care of your family financially. Greatness comes from the fact that you hold the word of God very dearly and you attempt to do everything that is written in the book as much as you.
I would disagree because greatness for me is the ability to carry out the purpose and the calling of God for your life, what you were created for. So, and there are a lot of people that will do that without and achieve greatness, whatever their sexual orientation or sexual problem might be. Someone like what do you call this man? Kaki was a Catholic system. Benjamin Franklin. Benjamin Franklin is regarded as one of the most promiscuous women ladies of his age. I don't know if people know about that. Benjamin Franklin was known as a woman man, as a ladies man. From America to London to France, he had women everywhere. But don't tell me he was not one of the greatest men of his age. Same with Abraham Lincoln, same with George Washington. So I think greatness has to do with your calling, your destiny, and how much you are faithful to fulfilling that calling. You know that people like Martin Luther King Jr., who was the civil rights liberty leader in America, was also accused of promiscuity. but you cannot deny his place in history as well. And so I would say greatness really is the ability for you to fulfill the calling and the purpose for which God created you. Now, so why is it that throughout history, men have been struggling with their sexuality? And why did it get to the place that even God allowed and Moses allowed for women to have multiple wives in the Old Testament? Because if we talk like that, then it means that either we have to say we don't recognize the Old Testament, or there is something that God considered to have allowed all the Old Testament to be there. So Davida is talking about great before your place in history does not equal your place before God. Well, let's talk about people who had place before God, Davida. What about David? How was his place before God? What about Solomon? How was his place before God? What about other people in the Old Testament that were having several wives and different relationships, and they were still great before God? In fact, they are in the Hall of Fame of God, in the Hebrews chapter 11, full of them. So the thing is that, what about the women also who were prostitutes, and yet they were in the lineage of Jesus, and they became great in the eyes of God? God brought them in the lineage of God, like what they call, not Hagar now, what's the name of the woman, the prostitute woman? Yeah, so a lot of things that we need to understand. And okay, for example, somebody say, how can you understand, or how can you explain the fact that a man is married to his wife, right? He has his wife in the house, and he was caught sleeping with Rahab, right? He was caught sleeping with his maid. That is illogical. It's not logical. And this is not just a man, this is a big man. So they're asking, the question, how do you explain that a man is married to his wife but loves other women? That is one thing we must help the women to understand. Listen closely, everybody here. The nature of man does not allow him, how do we say it? Okay. What you are saying is that because he's married to the wife, the fact that he's married to the wife and involves himself with other women, this sister is saying that person that is married and having affairs with other women loves the other woman. That is what I want to correct, first of all. The fact that he's having affairs, the fact that he's sleeping with other women doesn't mean he loves them. And that's the point we are trying to make in the morning. For a man, sleeping with the maid or sleeping with other person, even getting them pregnant, doesn't mean he loves them. If you know the nature of men, the way men are built, sex doesn't equal love. It could be an expression of love, but it's not always sex. It's not always love for the man. The fact that he slept with other women doesn't mean he loves the other woman. And what I've said in the morning, if you did not listen to the morning session, you got to listen to it again. If he keeps on coming back to his wife, it means he doesn't love those other women. He's just using them. So what I would like the woman to understand is this. The fact that he's sleeping with those women, even you women who are single, if a married man is trying to sleep with you, he doesn't love you. The only thing the man wants to do is to get sex. But that doesn't mean he loves you. Men need sex, but they only love one. They have sex with others, but they love one. They could love more. Men have the ability to love more, but if he's coming back to one at home, the one he's coming back to the house, is the one he loves. And those other ones he's sleeping with, they shouldn't live in illusion that he loves them. He doesn't love them. He's using them. So, what women should know is this. Any form of sex outside of marriage is using, is not loving. Even if the person wants to sleep with you before marriage, when you are dating, that is still using, that is not loving. The person who wants to sleep with you out of marriage, if any kind of sex outside of marriage, it's not just a sin, but it's an attempt to satisfy the man, his sexual urge, but is not a demonstration from the man that he loves the woman. The man doesn't love any woman that he wants to sleep with, aside from his wife. Let me tell you a story about myself. And men will understand where I'm coming from. Can you believe it? I was having, and this is where some people got some stories that Pastor Sunday has slept with 20 women. I was having 20 girlfriends at a point. But this was before I became a Christian. I was having 20 girlfriends. But out of these 20 girlfriends, so, I have a lot of experience in that in the world. Out of these 20 girlfriends, there were 3 of them that I would not sleep with. And the reason I would not sleep with them is not because it's not possible to sleep with them. It's because I feel that I love them. And because I love them, I didn't want to touch them. Because I love them, I decided to, in fact, I even went to the extent of providing my own surveillance and security for people to be watching after them so that nobody would touch them, not just me. I was not touching them, and I was making sure that nobody would touch them. But other women who I knew were already loosed, other women who I knew were already soft and easy, other women that didn't even resist, I was sleeping with them. So how did I get to the point of knowing which one to sleep with out of these girls and which one not to sleep with? I went ahead pushing, being an unbeliever, I went ahead pushing and pressing, putting pressure on each and every one of them to sleep with me. And the ones that succumbed and gave up, and especially when I discovered that they were already not virgins, just goes a long way to tell me that they are already loosed anyway. And that if they could agree to sleep with me, they will agree to sleep with any other man. So what I'm saying is just to sensitize the ladies and let the ladies know that if the man really loves you, he will not sleep with you. And he will not defile you. So how I discovered that I shouldn't sleep with these 3 girls is that I put a tremendous amount of pressure on them. Just like even less than I put on the other ladies. So because they were the only 3 out of 20 So because now Nathaniel Afolabi is asking about 30 girls if I'm still a Christian. This was before I was a Christian. This was before I became born again. So because I put so much pressure on these ladies and they did not succumb, they did not give up, I knew that they were serious ladies and they were virgins, and I believed them. And I began to protect them. So what I'm trying to say is that ladies have a role to play in helping men become, honest and become pure and, control their libido and sexuality. Because women that are readily available, they also encourage women. They encourage men to be promiscuous. Now, of course, I didn't end up marrying any of the girl ladies because I got born again. So I came to God. I left everybody. So the next thing I received here is this. Somebody is saying, I don't believe that God made men that way, because it's not possible that somebody cannot control himself. God didn't make men to have so much libido and desire for sexuality. God made everybody to be able to control themselves. But they just cannot submit to God's authority and because they cannot. Okay, Davida is saying, men stay in marriages when they are sleeping around because they need to be married to someone for their status in the society. Some stay married because of convenience, not because of love, which is true. Men have high sexual desire, but not an uncontrollable sexual desire. You see, people like Davida, who already know from A to Z about women, about men, there's no way you can tell them anything otherwise because they already know. You see, that is what we have our stereotypes. People have their own stereotypes and they cannot even consider the possibility of any other thing. The fact that a man had an affair or is having an affair doesn't mean that he doesn't love the wife. It's not true. Like I've shown to you many, many times. I'm going to show you again. Men are built differently than the women. It's possible for man to love one woman, the wife, and still have an affair. That is just their build-up. And I have shown you this so many times. You don't have to believe it, but the life around us tells us the truth of it. There is no other explanation. If the only explanation you have is that they are just promiscuous, they are just silly, they are just loose, and they are just not serious, they just want to sin, you will find out that it's easy to just condemn the whole world like that. But the fact that men need discipline, yes. Men need the fear of God, yes. But see this picture? But let me tell you what will keep men from sin. See this, let's say this is the body of the man, this is the heart, this is the emotion, feeling, and this is the mind. The fact, anything that is happening here to the body does not necessarily affect here, until it wants it to affect it. But for the woman, everything is together. So what I'm saying is that a man can be having sex physically and not even being in love with the person. And at the same time, in his heart, he could be in love with another person. You might want it, you might not want it, but that is just the fact. He can have sex or do anything in his body, but not love. His heart might be in another place. Because, as I said, a man has what we call his sperm bank. And he releases it from time to time. He might release it through sex. He might not release it through sex. Some people are addicted to pornography. And that is how they release their sperm bank, empty their sperm bank. Some people do masturbation. And that is how they release their sperm bank. But for the men, one way or the other is got to release. So what is the key for the men? That's what I want to get to. How can a man not get himself involved in extramarital affairs? How can the man not get himself involved in masturbation? How can a man not get himself involved with pornography? 3 things. And if you look at statistics says that 98% of men have been involved with masturbation or pornography. It's just like all of them, 100%. So why is this possible? It means there is something there. And I'm telling you, that is having to do with their protruding nature. Men have the protruding nature and they've got to do something about it. Even if they're not sleeping around, some of them might be watching masturbation. What do you call it? Doing masturbation or watching pornography. So what is the way out? The way out is this. The way out for the man is, number 1, busy. But the fact that the man is busy mentally is not enough. The man has to be busy physically. Number 2, the man has to live an active life and especially be involved in sports. That might be able to reduce, but that doesn't remove his nature. Thirdly, the thing that might be able to help the man, he needs to have an understanding wife. A wife that will be there for him almost all the time. And we know that it is not possible for a woman to be ready 100% at all times. Because at least once a month, a woman is involved in menstruation. A woman is having a menstruation where she cannot have sex. So what happens when a man is having menstruation and a man needs sexual release, or a man needs to release himself and to empty his bank, like we say? There is a way out here. Somebody will actually ask me the question, how can we help the men empty their banks? Because it is not possible for a woman to be ready 100% and every day. Not just the menstruation. A woman might be having menstruation. A woman might be having bad mood. A woman might not be in the mood. A woman might be having mood swing. Maybe they just had an argument, or maybe they just had a disagreement, or maybe they just had a fight, or maybe they just had a quarrel, and it will be equal to rape if you go and ask a woman for a sex and have your way and force her or make her to have sex with you when she's not in the mood, or when she just had a quarrel, or when she just had a disagreement. You cannot do that, because that will be tantamount to rape. And that is why in Europe now they call something rape in the family. So how can a woman then still help the husband? How can a woman still help him to release if wants it and she's not ready. That is where maturity comes into play. That is why maturity comes into play. Because if a man really is pressured sexually, wants to release, and he cannot, and or the woman is not available, you know what most men do? They go to the toilet and they still do it anyway. Or they go and go into the computer and they still do it anyway. So women must be wise and use old woman's trick. What is the old woman trick which I want to teach you today? How can you help your man still be sexually fulfilled and despite the fact that you are not ready? Now, anything I will say concerning this topic will be criticized. And people will target and give it any name and begin to say that is perversion or that is wrong or something. But if you are smart and you know that you want to help your own husband and you love your husband and you want to prevent him from going somewhere else or running about or being addictive to pornography or masturbation, be smart, woman. As a smart wife, tell him, I cannot do sex now. I cannot, tell him that you cannot be intimate now. You are not in the mood. Just tell the truth. And women who are married know exactly what I'm talking about. It is not possible for them to always be in the mood. It is not possible for them to always, and just to be suffering in silence is not the best thing as well. I don't believe it that a woman should just open her legs just because what pastors say that she must perform a duty, a marital duty, that you must just perform that marital duty. A woman shouldn't be killing herself just because she wants to, to do some marital duty. I think what should be done is women should help the man, because let's find out what is primary on the mind of the man. The primary thing on the mind of the man is for him to release, just for you to know that. He's not thinking about making love to you, like like when you are in honeymoon. First of all, sex to the man is first of all to release that pressure. There is a pressure that is on him, and he needs to let that pressure go out. He needs to let that pressure out. You must know that as a woman. A woman must try to understand that. And if you are mature enough to understand that, then you know that what he really needs might not be the penetration right now or the sexual act right now, but just a creative way to help him release. And once he releases, he gets what he needs. He doesn't need too much. And that's why men think that they don't need too much. Just help them. So if a woman is smart and a woman could just help him to release, for some men, it's as simple as just for the wife to allow him to hug her. So if you are a woman, you just say, come and hug me, or let me hug you, or just come and hug me. That might be enough, it might be enough a help for the man to do to release and let himself go. Or in some cases, it is enough for the man just to come and lie beside the woman, or to just lie with the woman. That might be enough for him to finish. And when he finishes, the pressure is gone. Somebody is asking here. So, what happened to self-control, Pastor? What kind of pressure is that? Are they fuel pump? Okay. What happened to self-control? Apostle Paul, even though he himself didn't marry, But he spoke about this pressure. This pressure is in 1 Corinthians chapter 7. 1 Corinthians chapter 7. And it talks about there is a place for this pressure. There is something they call sexual pressure, or he calls it that don't burning in the flesh. You know, don't let yourself just be burning like that. And instead of you to burn, you know, why don't you just help out? Help the man out. Help your man out instead of you allowing him to burn. And the Bible talks about that also. Even though Apostle Paul himself is the one who spoke about self-control. Apostle Paul called self-control one of the fruit of the Spirit. But despite the fact that he knows about self-control, and he knows that he could have used self-control in this situation, but he's not recommending self-control in this situation. He's saying, go and meet your woman. See, 1 Corinthians chapter 7 verse 36. But if any man thinks he is behaving improperly towards his girl or virgin, if she is past the flower of her youth, and thus it must be, let him do what he wishes. What he wishes doesn't necessarily mean sexual intercourse, but what he wishes is to relieve himself. What he wishes is for himself to be relieved. And the Bible says he does not sin in that case. Let him marry. So, yes, there are situations when men are able to control it. So what happens to self-control? Let me tell you what happens to self-control. If men have not been involved with self-control, men would have been doing sex every 1 hour, maybe every half an hour. Because men have sexual suggestions on the average 3,000, it could be up to 3,000 times a day. Suggestions, ideas. It doesn't have to be, but in my own understanding, from my own experience, I know men will have at least 3 to 5 sexual times suggestions in a day. 3 to 5 times sexual suggestion. So why is it that he's not doing it? He's not making love. He's not sleeping around 3 to 5 times a day? Because he has self-control. He's having self-control. It is thanks to self-control that he's not coming to meet you at work and he's not coming back from work to do all that. But when he's controlling himself the whole day and he's hoping that somebody, maybe the wife, will help him relieve that pressure. So why pressure if he could exercise self-control? He's been exercising self-control. Can you imagine yourself exercising self-control on 3,000 times a day? Maybe even 300 times a day. 300 times a day. Or 30 times. Even 3 times a day. For men, it's much more. Okay, somebody also is writing me and said, but we are created the same, the men and the women. Why is it that men could could self-control, and the men? I mean, why is it that women could self-control and men cannot control themselves? We are not created the same. That is why I was showing you those photographs. That photograph shows that we are not created the same way. We are different. For the woman, she is all locked up inside, you see? She is all locked up inside. You need to unravel her. She needs to be paid attention to. She needs to hear some nice words. She needs to pay, a different process, a complex process needs to be done before you get to the heart of a woman. It's just like this thing that I use as an example. I use this as an example. You see, the woman is all locked up inside. The woman is all locked up inside. And if you look at the sexuality of the man and woman, even the way they are built, you see that the woman sexuality and private organ is hidden. And the reason it's hidden is because that tells us a lot of things. It tells us that a woman needs to be discovered. A woman's permission needs before she could be aroused sexually. Somebody needs to go inside a woman and get out to get interested. Somebody needs to go and get inside her and get her interested through attention, through love, through all that. But for the men, Katerina Adamoleku is writing, Pastor, men who think 5 times a day about sex are not busy. They need medical attention. Look, he's out of it, it's because you don't know the nature of men. Men could get triggered by anything. Doctor, you are a medical doctor. Tell me, 3 times a day about sex, a man cannot think. If he's thinking, or if he gets sexual suggestions 3 times or 5 times a day, he needs medical attention. Yeah, I'm trying to say, men could get triggered by anything. If he's busy, he might be busy using his computer and see a picture, or just remember some film he has watched before, and anything could come up in him. Well, let's see what doctor will say about that. Does he need medical attention?
Well, I don't think he needs medical attention. I know being busy is a good distraction. For me personally, I always remember that devil
finds work
for him.
Yeah.
So I'm always busy.
I do, yeah.
I'm always constantly busy. My wife knows this about me. If I'm not home, I'm in the office. Because I own my own business, I spent an average of 10 to 11 hours in my office. In fact, sometimes she will call me and say, honey, dinner is ready. Then I look at it, I was like, oh, I need to go home. I keep myself so busy that I don't have time to be going to parties and be seeing girls and things. I have enough temptation on my job. When ladies will come...
Is it possible to have temptations 3 times, 5 times a day?
Oh, yeah. I mean, when you are in a position that I find myself, people look at me as successful black guy in a white world, or he has his own practice and things.
So for a man, that is possible. Because the ladies can't understand that. How can you have temptation in 3 times or 5 times?
It could be just you seeing the knee of a lady, the skirt rides up, and you see fine legs, and especially some of my white patients, they have very beautiful skin. And they will come in with a very short pant. So I have a blanket in my office, and my staff knows that. Once I get up, they know that's a clue. They'll say, oh, it's cold in here. Or they deliberately turn the air conditioner down to make it cold so they can cover the lady. Because those sexual temptations are everywhere.
Easy for the men.
And you can never find anybody more born again than I am. More spirit, tongue filled, but the sexual temptations are there. You can't take it away from a man. It is there. Even though my wife is in the office with me, they will still be chatting. These ladies will be chatting and giving me suggestions about sleeping with each other and things. So you find yourself as a man that if you don't have serious self-control.
What another man is writing here. A brother here is writing, Tayo Stephen. Stephen is saying, Pastor, make no argue with them. Don't argue with them. Stop explaining to these women. Stop explaining to them. Leave them alone. Let them keep on arguing. Let them keep on arguing. They might want, if they want to believe, let them believe. If they don't want to believe, let them not believe.
She knows that once I start saying, oh, have you met my wife? That means that I want these ladies to know that I'm married and my wife is right next door. My wife's office is right next to my office. In fact, sometimes I'll go call her and say, come and bail me out. Oh, let me introduce you to this lady. There are some women out there that are really looking for good men. And when they see you as epitome of success. You love your wife, maybe you can transfer it to them. So those suggestions are always there.
They are always there.
I can tell you personally, if I don't get tempted 8 times a day, I've not started.
8.
Yeah.
So it's even more than 5.
It's more than that.
I'm talking about 3-5 times a day minimum for the man.
But Sunday, all the people that work for me are women. You've seen them. Whenever we talk those guys, and they are very pretty. In fact, somebody asked me, do you put them in a lineup, in a beauty pageant before you pick them? They come to work, they deliberately will not wear gado so that their bum will be... They might just be walking in front of you. You get, as a man, you have to look. You're like wondering, wow, does she have anything under that scrub? But you have to control yourself. It's self-control that keeps us, and the grace of God.
I'll tell you that more than self-control, what I've discovered is that in my own office, I went and when I'm in the office, I have a door, but the door is glass. So I put a glass door so that no matter what is happening in the office, all my secretaries that are in the other room, they could look through. So, that's one of the ways that men could fight, sexual suggestions in a day, or, sexual temptations. So put yourself in a place where you will not be alone with the opposite sex. Secondly, always have somebody around you, or always have people around you. Always surround yourself with people. So those are some of the things that will help you. But let me tell you what will really help you. When we were talking in the beginning, doctor said, sexual sin is, despite the fact that it's spontaneous, it is also deliberate. So, because when it is, the idea comes to you, or it paralyzes you, you just have it, but you still have to act. You still need to get to the hotel, you need to get to a room, you need to go somewhere. But even though you have already been paralyzed, but it is intentional in the sense that you have to intentionally get an office, get a room, or get an address, or get a place. That is the intentional part of it. Now, but when the sexual urge comes, some men cannot think anymore. So that is the good thing about working with your wife in the same place. That is another thing that could help. Now, that's a bad suggestion, because many people will never be able to do that. Sorry, many people will never be able to do that, but that could help for anybody that has the opportunity. But let me tell you what will really help. I, as a man, I've come to discover that man, by his own strength, can actually do nothing. We all need grace, especially when it comes to sexual. Somebody said, Pastor, can you do a dedicated session for our wives? Anyway, when it comes to sexual sin of men, because of their nature and because of their fragility, men are so fragile. Because like I just told you about sexuality of the woman, that she's hidden. She's totally hidden. She's totally hidden, right? Yeah, you can't say it. You have to go inside. You have to sew into her. You have to go inside to get her. But the man is protruding nature. The man, that's why the sexual organ of the man is always out. Why? Because the men are the seed carrier. They need to plant the seed. If they are not planting the seed, humanity will die off. There will be no humanity. So that is why they have that intruding nature with the pressure under them always to let it go. Always pressure under them to let it go. It's just like going to the toilet, like I said, just to go and piss or to go and relieve themselves. So that's why I will say this. The greatest thing to help a man from falling into sin, it doesn't matter, pastor, no pastor, anybody, is the grace of God. Any man will tell you this. When it comes to sexual sins, you need the grace of God. If the grace of God is removed, there is nothing you can do on your own. There is nothing you can do. There is no way. There is just nothing you can do. You cannot do anything on your own. You need the grace of God. to keep you from falling into sexual sin, especially in our world today. You drive in your car, you drive by the time you drive from 1 kilometer or 2 kilometers from your house to your something, you see so many temptations on the road, up and down, everywhere. You go to your work, you go to your home, you open your computer, everywhere you see that. So we need grace. So if you ladies are really interested in keeping your husband and helping your husband through, ask for God's grace upon them. Ask for God's grace upon them. What I've discovered is that as soon as men begin to depend on themselves, on their own strength, they fail. So men need to acknowledge their vulnerability. Men need to acknowledge their weakness. Men need to acknowledge the fact that they are weak. Men need to acknowledge the fact that anything could happen to them. Men need to acknowledge the fact that men need to acknowledge the fact that they are vulnerable, and rely and call intentionally. Rely on God's grace. Rely on God's grace. All right. Thank you so very much. Have a wonderful day. Blessings. Bye.